because when you're building a business, especially if one that's going to have multiple stages of investment, every deal you do is based on the previous deal with a multiple on it. It's very rare, unless you're living in a complete bubble in California, to go from 1 to 100 overnight. You more like go from 1 to 2 or 3, from 3 to 10, from 10 to 12 or 20, and so on. There's a multiple, and if you start with a very small number, the next multiple of investment, valuation, growth, size will be a little bit of a bigger number. If you start with a bigger number, the next one is an even bigger number. So we had this idea, we didn't have it built, we needed to get it built. The guy said, how much is the business you're going to give us? It's going to cost us £50,000 to do this. And we said, we'll give you 5%, so valuing us at £1 million. And it's a nice round number, we plucked it out of nowhere. The point about this was they felt they were getting involved in something big. We could have said 20,000 or 50 or 100,000 pounds, and they would have felt like they were getting involved in something small. So they immediately felt they were getting involved in something big. And because we effectively gave them our life savings, there was a big trust element there to say, well, we can give you a good deal. We will only take 5% of this business to spend a lot of money of our own time building it, because you've given us everything you've got. You've shown your trust. And from that basis, we were then able to do more deals. And the important thing about that is we had a valuation on Huddle. So very early on, or before we even had a product, we had a valuation. And what that means is you can then start to talk to serious investors about what your business might be worth and where you need money to grow it. So we had a product by this point. So we had a product. We had a partner in that product who were the guys who built it for us. We had a valuation. We had some customers paying some money. But we were rapidly running out of money again, and we needed to get some expertise in sales. We were both good at sales. We needed some people to support us in service and development to help growing the business overall. And we decided we wanted to go for angel funding. And I know you've had lots of talks and discussions on this or whatever, but the biggest lesson that we learned here is actually from this book on the right, The Beer Mat Entrepreneur, which is a fantastic book. It's very simple, big text, big font, small words, sort of thing I can read. And it's by Andrew Southern, who's a really entertaining speaker if you ever get to see him. And it's The Beer Mat Entrepreneur. He's done several other beer mat books. But it's great, and one of the essential lessons it has in there is the rate to a rich person's wallet is via his PA. And we did that, exactly that. We managed to get 5 minutes in this guy's diary when he was driving down from Newbury to his office in his Aston Martin to pitch him being a mentor, actually, being a non-exec on our business. Andy knew him because he used to work for him, and he's my co-founder. He got interested enough to say, I'll meet you in London for a coffee. And at that point, we then had a serious discussion actually about money, not just mentoring. So that was our first. Now, the interesting thing about this is he was not an angel. He is a rich person. He had done very well. He's a multiple stage entrepreneur. He's made a lot of money building a telco business over the last 20 years, several of them, and had a lot of money to spend. And the point about this, when you're raising early stage money, we would advise, don't go for an angel, go for a rich person, because they are different. An angel is someone who's a professional investor, and they are very appropriate and fantastic at certain stages of your organisation, probably a little bit later than the pure vision stage that we are at. When you're at that stage, what you need is someone to buy into you and your idea, personally, on a kind of, I love this, I just want to give this a go, I want to help you guys get off the ground. There's a couple of personal links. And that's what Charles did. He invested £150,000 in the business. At the same time as he invested £150,000 in our business, he bought an Aston Martin for £150,000, which he wrote off a week later. I think it was 2 weeks later, actually. Point is, it was a flutter. It was a gamble. He got passionate about it. He loved it. He wasn't thinking of it with his investment head on. So we got great terms. We got someone who's motivated. He's now our chairman. He's put more money in since. He's a very experienced guy. And we were able to, because we had £1 million valuation, we were then able to get triple that valuation off him. He said, I want to give you, he said, I want to put some money in, because if I put some money in, I'm interested in your business. And we said, great, how much have you got? Being totally naive, and naivety is a great thing at this stage of the business. And he said, oh, I've got about £150,000 I can spare. And we said, fantastic, that'll do. And he said, well, how much of the business are you going to give me? And we said, 3%. And he said, 5%. And we said, okay, 4%. And then we realised that we valued ourselves at £3.5 million, and we still didn't have anything. And we still had the click-through product that wasn't even built yet. The point here is simply that A, naivety is great. B, he didn't care about the valuation of the money. He was passionate about us and the idea that we had. And at an early stage, that's exactly what you need. Someone who believes in you. And he's been a mentor to us and a great chairman to us as we've grown. So that is my advice for stage 4. When you get to this stage, you need a bit more money to really go for it. Now, angels and serious investors, what you might call them, are fantastic for the next stage of your growth, and that's what we did next. But for where we were here, that was the biggest lesson. So then we had some money. We had a product by this point. We had some customers. But we were in a very big... This was 2007. Web 2.0 was massive. There were huge sums of money being thrown around in California. SaaS was just coming, up as a big topic. Cloud hadn't been invented yet, but it was all, all that hype was still going. We had the problem of how do you grow your business to be famous in verticals that people will use you. And we read TechCrunch every day with envy of all the Californian-based startups getting huge column inches. And we realized the other lesson, which is perception is reality. What the Californians are great at doing is building their perception of the big businesses when actually you get there and actually they're very small. And we decided to do the same. So we spent a lot of time building the hype about Huddle, building the vision around what we were doing, and through that got press. The first TechCrunch article added 20,000 users overnight, which grew exponentially from there. We copied lots of other successful startups. We bootstrapped Huddle from other resources, other money, consulting, etc., whilst we were getting there, and put it all through Huddle's books so that the revenue and the cost base is growing. You've got a sustainable business. And that was huge for us, because at the stage we were then to raise our next round of financing, we looked a lot bigger in the market side than we were. As soon as you look like that, then of course you can start to get some big customers, and we started to get some government customers, we got Boots and so on using us and so on. And that's when your reality starts to mimic your perception. And it was at that point we decided, well, do we have a nice little earner here, or have we got a global business on our hands? Because Charles, he'd put money in as an investor and almost as a friend. It was definitely a friends and family round. And he would have been probably happy to see us grow it small and keep it quite small. But equally, we wanted to grow a very big business, and that's where we had this fork in the path. And I raised this slide just because if you start down the path of fundraising, if you haven't done it before, like we hadn't really done it before, then the biggest thing to learn is once you've started, you will be carrying on going. It's a journey that is only a one-way street. The average for American global Fortune 500 companies that went public in the tech sector over the last 10 years, the average that the founders owned and management as a percentage of the whole business after it went public is less than 10%. And that includes all the managers and the stock options. So the point is investors own a huge amount of the business by the time you get to that point. So if you're trying to build a big business and you're going for funding, you will end up sharing that business with your investors, obviously. But it will be a big chunk. And so you have to weigh that up before you go to it. And that's a fundamental decision, because quite often what we see is people are stuck in that they're trying to make a small business and keep hold of stuff whilst also having ambitions to build a very big business. So if you're going to do that, go for it, but be aware you're on a journey with the investors. So we decided that we wanted to grow that big business and we were going to need more money. So we wanted to get in front of investors, and these events are fantastic, and that's why we're so passionate. That's why Jamie speaks at them, that's why I speak at them, because we've all been through this. And we did one of the original G2I ones back about 4 years ago. We did a Library House event, which is sadly a business used to be run by Doug Richards, that's no longer defunct. But the point is, we did a version of this at the IMAX Theatre where we had 7 minutes to pitch our business, and all the investors were in the audience. That gets you in front of other investors and so on. And bizarrely, the investors we ended up taking our A round from were the guys at the bottom, Eden Ventures, who are a small early-stage tech investor. But the guys at the above, Fidelity, to a lesser extent Advent and DJF, are much bigger investors, or were at the time. And when we went to them, we were very excited about going to see them because we thought we had a chance. It's laughable. You go into Fidelity's offices, the minimum check they were writing at the time was 100 million quid, and they're doing deals for $1 billion on market cap. But the point was, when they see interesting tech, they then feed it onto their feeder funds like Eden and say, check out these guys. If you invest in them, we'll follow on later on. And it's that ecosystem, because they need to bring companies to their next investors as they go forward. And if you get a recommendation from one of the bigger investors, then it's a much easier way to get in. So just getting out there, meeting everyone, no matter who it is great. If you're in tech, there are other routes to raising money other than kind of getting out and doing things like this. There's things like Seed Camp, Y Combinator, and small feeder funds of business angels or of early stage VC who have their small feeder funds like the Accelerator Group that are great to go and do. And G2, any way when you can get in front of investors, practice your pitching skills, the better. And you'll suddenly find a tipping point where you've done 2 or 3 of them and people suddenly start to get it. And you'll know you get the nods and reactions. And when you stand up, you get 4 or 5 investors asking for your cards afterwards. You'll know you're into it and you're then in the process. So then you're talking to investors, and this is another lesson we learnt, is that you can destroy your business at this stage as well. And sadly saw it with two businesses. When we took our A round, we moved into sort of bigger offices down in London Bridge, where we still are, creaking at the seams, and we let out our bottom floor to 3 or 4 other early stage companies, a lot of them tech. One of them had been on Dragon's Den, great young guys, and one of them, the one who had been on Dragon's Den, their business blew up right at this stage. And they had what I thought was a very promising business. It was a careers web, an innovative way of doing recruitment for the graduate careers market. And they blew up simply because they went to so many investors, and each one had their own idea, that they got pulled from pillar to post, changed their business plan 14 times in their idea, and then ended up with nothing, and it blew up because they got so confused. And it's not an insult on them or the investors, but it's a danger. You have to be careful not to dilute your vision. And the great thing that happened to us is we went all over the place with our different investors, but ended up back at our central original vision with Eden. And that's when we knew that they were the investors for us and we were the company for them, because our visions matched, and having learned from all the other investors we talked to along the way. So definitely be careful with that.